Check 1, 2. Thank you, and God bless you, everyone here and on the broadcast at the Temple of Clarity in Vista, California, October 4th, 2018, in the celebration of St. Francis of Assisi. We have some amazing things set up. I would say Brother Robert, the Franciscan brother, who's going to lead most of this service. And wherever you are, wherever you go, I think everybody knows the story of St. Francis. I can't tell you how many times I've been to somebody's house and seen that statue with the dove on his hand, or a little deer at his feet, or something like that. And something about how the peace of Christ, when it is established in the soul, that all nature, all the angels, just feel so comfortable and at ease in His presence. And in the presence, I have seen other people who can call birds, wild birds, and they land on their hands. And I've witnessed that. The Christ, the light of God, that if we choose to indwell it, if we choose to incorporate it in our hearts, our heart of hearts, in the deepest part of our minds, that peace emanates out to all creation, and that love is returned by nature. So we'll start with a little meditation, and I picked this song partly because I feel like it's inspired by how St. Francis loved Jesus. And that tremendous love brought him into that place of oneness with everything. So let's do a short musical meditation, and then I'll turn it over to Brother Bob Ballantyne.
Oops. Good shot. Is this okay? So, I want to share a few things about St. Francis tonight and lead us into a connection, hopefully that I can share that I've had with him for some time now, many decades. And it goes back to where I'm led to share to start at the Prophecy Restaurant in Fort Lauderdale. And I was working there. It's a vegetarian restaurant, and I was washing dishes, and Lee came back and he said, strangest thing just happened. This woman came, I was washing dishes, and the woman came in and said that she had a message for Joseph, that if he would say the name Cthulhu 3 times, that Cthulhu would come to him. And I started shaking at my knees, and I had to hold on to the thing, and I went down to a knee, and I felt the presence of St. Francis so strongly. And I said, Lee, that was my name in the order. I am Brother Joseph. And so where is the lady? Oh, she's gone. Well, there I am in Fort Lauderdale, and no one, I couldn't, so there I go, like searching for her. Well, I find her eventually. I just had to really pray about it, I just prayed. What else are you going to do? And I located her. Her name was Nori Pope. And she said that she was a high priestess in Atlantis, and that she had contributed to its fall. And she was, because the I am flames around the altars in Atlantis. And whenever that flame is perverted, it just doesn't work anymore. And that's why on earth it's so important to balance our threefold flame and to be aware of the I am presence and to pray and do affirmations. Well, so she was sent on mission by different masters, and she was a psychic. And I'm not into psychics in the very least, but she became a friend, and she told me a lot about myself, and she told me that I was with him in that life, that I had been in the original band, and I'd already been a brother in an order. I was saved in '68 in Michigan, and then went to Bible college in Texas, and then I joined an order, an inner city holy order under vows, and my money went out to the order, and I worked in Texas and at an Fillmore aid station in San Francisco. I was in seminary in Chicago and Reno. I worked in the missions in the ghettos of Detroit, and I'm not any different from you. I'm not any better serving God than all of you in the room or anyone listening. But I do know what service is, just like you know what service is. I'm certainly not of any higher level than any of you here. But I'm sharing today that if you say the name of Cthulhu, because I've done it now thousands of times since that time, he will come to you. And the master KH, or Cthulhu, is the name of the ascended master, St. Francis. And I wanted to share a little bit about his life, and then I want to get to the picture, and we're also here to honor Liz Lang tonight, and want her to tell the kind of little miraculous story about the frame, and we're going to get to the picture, and I want to thank my friend Dennis for hosting this, and it's good that everyone's here, Carlos and everyone. So St. Francis in the 12th century, near the time of the Reformation, he had a very wealthy merchant father who traded in linens, and he went to war. Did you know that? And he was captured, and he got really sick, deathly ill. He was ransomed out. Because they knew his father had some money, and you could get your freedom. And they expected him to go back to war, and he had armor. He gave the armor away. He went by this church, old torn down church, and a cross spoke to him and said, "Francis, build my church. Rebuild my church." And he thought it meant that physical church. Well, that was the start of many things, of him completely stripping naked in the town square and walking through town and having a little following of Clare and the beginnings of St. Francis. Well, just like the high priest and Pharisees, "I'm fair, you see," and the Sadducees, "I'm sad, you see," did not like Jesus. They didn't like St. Francis because people were experiencing love. He lived in the moment. Now, I don't know how many of you have contemplated or thought about St. Francis's life and what made him so special. If all of us, and we all know this, if we focus on something and truly are in the moment, I give up on my glasses. If we're truly in the moment, that we focused on becomes very powerful. Well, he focused on Christ. He wanted to live like Jesus. Well, that got him into some situations because he was condemned as a heretic, blasphemous, and they wanted to excommunicate him. So the Pope called him to come to Rome, and he went. He was obedient, and the Pope had a dream or something the night before. I read about it, but what really happened was that when he was called before and he was asked, he said, "I just want to live like Jesus. That's all we're doing." Now, he wasn't the only person who did almost a very similar thing, but in some groups were bound as heretics. So it was he did not want to be excommunicated. This was a very important thing. And the Pope had the power to excommunicate him, and he would do a certain thing with his staff. And the Pope took the staff, and everyone, the priest, wanted him to turn it, and that would be the end of the Franciscan order. But he actually handed it to one of the guards. He walked up to St. Francis, got on his knees before St. Francis and said, "Bless me, bless me." And that happened. So then, even with the ordaining of his ministry and all that, there were people as it got larger that wanted to organize. They say God made man, man made religion, and the devil came along and organized it. Well, that kind of happened a little bit. He had to make some rules, and he really didn't want to write anything down. He wanted to just live simply. Let's live the life of Christ. But he there's nothing wrong with things written down, and we're all going to say the prayer of St. Francis. And when I was a brother in seminary in Chicago, I had to have calluses on my knees about this thick because we had to pray all the time. And when I was in Reno, Nevada, I was in silence for 2 weeks in the chapel, and I got communicating with a bird for 12 hours a day that would come by the window, and I sent messages like to my mom via the bird, and I'd get reports back from the bird, and these things really happen. You get contacting with nature. We all know that God speaks to us through nature. It's not a special thing. But then, when I was 20, I was living in Texas and was drawn up to Southern Oregon and lived in a log cabin without running water, electricity for 5 winters, 3 summers, made candles, went to the Eugene Renaissance fairs, and and lived a life of faith and had no fear and was not insecure and knew God would provide, and took in hitchhikers. Like if you were post Haight-Ashbury and you were looking, you heard people were living in Oregon, and I would take you in, and I never got left $1. I mean, not to say that wouldn't have been nice, but it just didn't happen. And people shared food, and I didn't have electricity, and I lived there a long time. And Care took it from Margaret Douglas out of Boise, Idaho. And I share this with you because that's when I get into the I Am teachings at St. Germain, and I went to the St. Germain Foundation, and I read Unveiled Mysteries, and I started doing affirmations. And that's how I ended up in the Summit Lighthouse organization. And then when they all moved from California up to Montana, 30 years ago, I'm in line for ice cream, and I'm next to this guy who's really tall, and he was in line for ice cream. And I said, we just started talking, and he asked my name. He said, I know everything about you. I know everything about you. How do you know about me? Because he had made friends with Phil Proffer, who in Fort Lauderdale I had made friends with and got him into the teachings by slowly giving him the pearls of wisdom, which leads me to this book. So these are dictations through a woman named Elizabeth Clare Prophet, who the masters would speak through. And these are alternating on every subject that we know about as people. The Corona class lessons, I probably read it over and over and over. And once you start reading, it's one dictation from Jesus, then one from Kuthumi, one from Jesus, one on all different topics. I tell you, I highly recommend it. I'm going to read a little bit from it. I'm actually going to have... Dennis, I want you to read these 2 paragraphs right here, please. Would you? These 2 paragraphs right there. Okay? Right, starting right there. Okay.
God is not the matter universe, neither is the universe God. It is, however, the vessel unto which he pours his life, and the life there is in matter is God. Furthermore, within the divine being, extending a portion of himself into substance, spiritual or material, the inner structure of that substance would collapse. Likewise, should Elohim draw their God consciousness from the embrace and the vision of the physical universe, these two and all therein would cease to be. Beloved, God is not the mind that comprehends and knows in part, but the mind of the man that potentially senses the things of spirit, is connected with, and utilizes the one universal intelligence of God. This spiritual intelligence whispers to life, life obeys, the impetus of love mandates, hastening joyously to observe the ritual of God's perfect plan, amplifying the divine intent to the fullness of its power.
Thank you, Dennis. Like I see my brother Carlos here, I see my sisters, and I know all 3 of you, and it's the simple love. St. Francis broke down life into a very simple thing. And there was a time in America where bartering, where people had no money. And it was King George who ended that. And that was one of the causes of the Revolutionary War, was the ending of the barter system. It really upset the apple cart for a lot of people. And to share is what St. Francis was about. And I was asked today in my prayer, I went swimming, I meditated for quite some time. I didn't know what I would say tonight, is that I was told that a little group would be coming, and this is just what he would do. And to share, I need everyone, because I want to share with you what's worked for me. I want to give this to you so you know you have this tool, you know. So I want you to close your eyes, sit up, take a deep breath, think of something that you need or want in your life. And now it must be out loud. He won't allow me to do it just in my mind. I've never been able to do it in my mind for 40 years now. I want you to say, Cthulhu, Cthulhu, Cthulhu. Out. Is it Kuthumi or Kuthumi? Kuthumi, doesn't matter. It's close. He'll hear you. Do it at night if you wake up or before you pray or you're driving down in your car. If you have a burden, he'll come to you. And as you see, I really have to do a touch of PR before I go on to the print. He is very, very intelligent. And I remember the conversation up in the heart. And I don't know if it was with Dennis, but it was someone. It would be like somebody like Carlos. He and I, you should tape our conversations. I was asking, like, well, how do the masters know about us today? I mean, they lived way back when, and they've made their ascension. And how can they know about my struggles today and what I need? And how could they possibly help me today? Read the Corona class lessons, please, please. You'll be so impressed with the wisdom that Jesus gives. It's like having a beautiful master teacher right talking to you, and it just doesn't get better than that. Unless you can have private interviews with Carlos, of course. He's always available. So, or Dennis. Well, okay. Well, he was St. Francis, and he still can be prayed to, and he will come to you as St. Francis. He's also the Master KH. That world, I've had 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 near-death experiences. I've been to heaven, for real, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place. The love of your daughter or her love for you is very special. It isn't the love that's in heaven. It's a different love. It's really, really so permeating that it's even more than that. You know, like the love I have for the dog I just had euthanized is best love, or the love I have for Liz or my friend Dennis. You know, there's a love, but that love is so different. So to answer that, it's a frequency that his name generates a certain frequency that angels, Raphael, Uriel, Chamuel, Charity, Archangel Michael, Gabriel, Zadkiel, Holy Amethyst, Jawakul, Manjushri, Kuan Yin. Everyone has a name. We have a name here, but our vibration changes. And I think that has something to do with the naming of Ascended Masters. Lanello, Mark Prophet became Lanello. Okay, so they exist, and how to contact them, you just ask them, you ask them to help you. You pray to them for things. Roman Catholics call them the saints. And if you have Baptists, they don't believe in them at all. You know, it's good. They just don't. So, but those of us who do just share what we know, we share with each other to help each other have a better connection. So when we're troubled or when we're in need, we can go to each other and share, and we can pray to God and Jesus, and we all know Jesus, you know, but Mother Mary is also very real too. So, so I'm up in line getting ice cream, and there's this tall guy next to me. I'm like, like Liz and Dennis are people to make you stand up really nice and tall and straight, you know, and this young lady too. So we got talking. He says, "Oh, I know you, remember?" He says, like, he knew more about me than I did. And I went, "Wow, this is amazing. Where do you live?" I said, "I'm moving to San Diego." And lo and behold, we become really good friends and done all kinds of things together, and I just care about him so much. He's such a good guy. And during that particular heart event, in the one room, these prints were being given, and we were told to give them. It was okay to do what we wanted with them. That's the message I got. Now, I don't know if there's copyright infringes from the ones that, because it's a unique story. So I had these rolled up for 30 years. I gave one to the study center, and it cost me $70. I'm just sharing. And Liz, I'm going to let Liz tell her story. And listen, they were in my garage in Encinitas for 20 years. When I moved to Kitty's, they were there 5 years. They were there in South Carlsbad. Never in one tiny piece was there ever any dust or dirt. Everything next to it, you know, in the garage, you'd have to wipe off. Never that. I would pull it up and I'd go, wow, never in 30 plus years, this print. So I needed to make copies because I was going to go for the Franciscan friars. I told a little story before. So I go to Office Depot, and a person named Luke said, "Oh, I can do it. I will do it. I don't care if it's copyrighted or not." My guy. So he made me the copies, and so then I needed it framed because I knew that it would be coming here to Dennis's home, which he's made into a retreat center, where he's co-created with God and made a beautiful place where people can come and pray and worship and contact the ascended masters and angels, and he's just doing a really good service. You know, it is something he felt called to do. And so I would like Liz Lang to come up and just talk about her part in this and the little blessings that came along. So here's Liz. Oh, okay. All right, here.
Well, Bob brought this rolled up to me and this print, and he said the story about how, and it was spotless. It was clean as can be. And we unrolled it, and he said, "You know, I want to frame this piece, and that's what I do in my business." And I said, "Well, okay, I'm happy to do that, you know, but what is your budget?" And he said, "Well, you know, if you could do it for like $25. And I just laughed. I said, "You're crazy. You cannot frame a piece this size for $25. So I said, "Well, let me see. You know, I'll take it. I'll take it." So I one day had to go to Michael's, and there were these frames, and this is a 24 by 36 frame. It's not small, and the art had to be matted as well. But I found this nice wood frame, which really was the right tone. Really, I thought it was quite lovely and simple and rustic, and you know, it was just right. And I get up to the cash register. It was a $75 frame. You know, I was like, okay, well, whatever. I said, well, I'll just pitch in. So I get up, and it comes to $24.95. And I'm like, what? Oh, it's on sale. I said, you're kidding me. I said, well, great. I'll take it. That's in our budget. So then I take it to one of my favorite framers who actually bought my frame shop 30 plus years ago. And I said, Jonathan, I need a mat cut and mount this piece because it has to be mounted. And, you know, he goes, okay. And I picked out a cream color mat. And so he calls and says, okay, your piece is ready. He says, but, I feel really badly because I didn't use the mat you wanted. I just used a white mat. It's probably too white. And it did look too white. When I saw it, I was like, oh, gosh, that's really white. I kind of wanted it to be cream and softer. And he goes, well, you know what? I'm just not going to charge you for it. I love St. Francis, so no problem. So end of the day, we have a $25 Franciscan frame job, which has never happened. It was truly a miracle. And I was so thrilled to be a part of that and just allow that to be. So thank you for that wonderful task you gave me.
Yes. Yes, I did last Christmas. We brought it here. It's been here since Christmas, and we waited all year for the feast day. This is St. Francis feast day, so we've been conspiring and waiting, and
Sure. So, just recently, I have XM radio, and I tuned into the Catholic channel, and the Catholic channel is very fun, and I love the conversation because they're real people, but they talk about, how to live more godly. So today I listened to the Catholic channel, of course, and the saint of the day was St. Francis, and probably 10 times I heard the story of St. Francis and just tuned into it and just relishing in the beauty of 10/4, October 4th. And how the Catholic Church really honors St. Francis as well. Yeah.
I'm going to encapsulate. When would I be able to do one song?
Now.
Okay, right after the story. Is that okay? I'll keep it short. Okay, well, I've had angel experiences for real. An angel saved my life in the ocean for real. And I've seen angels as a dark cloud peeled off me, and I was left in the first heaven. As the dark cloud peeled off, they were all angels in my darkness. As they take our darkness, they come out the great central sun. Anytime you see a huge V in the clouds, and if you can see, you'll see them. They come out of the great central sun, Alpha and Omega, Helios and Vesta. Helios and Vesta. And they heal all the Earth's evolutions, and they take on effluvia, and that's in the Keeper's lessons, and they transmute it using the violet flame dispensation that Saint Germain received from Master Himalaya. And the angels are real. Ascended masters are very real. And so when I took this print for the Fiesta of the Friars a few years ago up at the San Luis Rey Mission, one of the 2 independent Franciscan missions, and I've got to know some of the people there, I wanted it to be part of the silent auction so they could get money for their seminary. And I was taking it there, and I won't get into the long story. I've just told this, but it's being recorded, so I want to say it again. The woman came out and was really rude, and I was just like, what? I waited for over an hour. Well, while I was waiting, the most phenomenal thing that I've ever experienced at the mission, I've been there a lot, really happened. A huge white light came. A white light came, and it was bright, and we all, what was that? You thought maybe it was a helicopter with a strobe or something, and there's a dove, a white dove from heaven on the cemetery wall. And the paraclete, that was St. Francis, because of the print there, the reality of this print. Because what's the most important thing to know and say, well, what did I learn in the order? What do I really feel is really important? Besides love and compassion and service and everything else, there are 2 very important things that I learned from being a brother. That if you want to carry the Christ, you must have two things. That the masters, for you to be a chela or become an adept or become a master here, there are two things you must have: knowing and reality. You must have those two things. And you must have them so strongly, so like a transmission of a car, that it's always working and always on. Because then the masters can use you. And I'll share that with you, that I have reality and knowing. And I have a level of self-mastery, yet all of you know me as broke down half the time and really in need of something. You all know me. But there's a spiritual side to all of us that is so strong. I mean, you get to know Carlos. What a beautiful soul. I mean, Dennis, he's not perfect. I mean, he's a perfect being, but we all have this beautiful side that is an unascended master here, right here. And we have to honor that. The thing I have to share that was asked the question to Alpha. Alpha is a great being. He's in the Sistine Chapel where the one man's touching, the God's touching. That's Alpha, outpictured in the Sistine Michelangelo. He was asked, what is the number one thing that holds chelas back on the path? What do you think it is? The number one thing.
Lack of faith.
Self-condemnation?
Unworthiness. Thinking you're just not worthy. That we need to own our own power, like the me movement, now or just me, me too, us. We need to honor ourselves. We need to stand up, and that's what Ascended Mastery is about. That they.
He was so selfless. He didn't care about himself.
Yes.
He said that he wished that he had taken better care of himself.
Right.
He would go into prayer for days and not eat,
Right.
not drink. He was sickly. His body was
Right.
literally, he died at 44.
Right. And
44.
even Gautama Buddha, 500 years who held the flame for all mankind, realized that certain ascetic, there's nothing wrong with fasting and intermittent fasting and going into your keto. That's wonderful. There are extremes that we learn perhaps aren't so healthy for us, mentally, spiritually, physically. But just getting back to that we each have a soul, we each have a divine ego and a threefold flame. And without reality or knowing, the masters won't use you in the most practical. You may have spirituality, you may have a great connection with Creator, Great Spirit, God, Father, Mother, God. But to be of truly, truly functional, that's what I learned in my years serving as a brother. Reality and knowing, and maybe contemplate on that. Because no matter where you're at spiritually, and all of you here have a great spiritual attainment. We're all together as a collective consciousness. So the other thing that the Franciscans would do is they would sing. They would go through the town in the rain. And the past 40, 50 years, some of that was revealed to me, and remember some of it a little bit. And so in that way, we're do a little song. Now, this is a devotional song. I'm going to play it through once, and then we're going to sing it 3 times. It's very short. It's called The Way of the Heart, the Song of St. Francis. And so listen, because I want you to sing with me right after. It's simple to get, because don't want to sing by myself. Do you want to add something on my guitar? Let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart shine through. Let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart shine through. Love upon love upon love, all hearts beating as one. Light upon light, all disappears into you. Everyone, let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart shine through. Let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart shine through. Love upon love, all hearts beating as one. Light upon light upon light, all disappears into you. Let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart shine through. Let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart shine through. One more time. Let the way of the heart, let the way of the heart shine through.
And that was written by St. Francis?
That's a devotional singing song that we did in Encinitas. It could be a John Aston song or somebody, I don't know the origins of that. You know, he, like you said, he did so much with animals, and that song just to me has always been the song of St. Francis. I just really like it. We're going to do the St. Francis prayer. You want to lead us with that? Carlos, can you grab those and pass them around, brother? We're going to do a little prayer. I just want you all to know that in the next week I'll be thinking of each of you, and I'm going to send you my own divine monad that I have with St. Francis. If you want me to, I will send it to you if you would like.
And what is that?
I will share with you this coming week. If you want me to, I will kind of pray for you with the thought form and the reality that Saint Francis has Cthulhu has gifted me with, that's grown over the years. You would feel it. If you want that imprint, let me know. You can tell me tonight, or if you don't, I won't. Because, that's the thing about psychics. They have no right to walk into a room and read your aura. I have no right to, I can pray for you and say, in thy knowing, O Father, according to thy will. You can assume people want to be prayed for. Maybe they really want to suffer, I don't. Pray for me. I want to be free of it.
Pray for me.
Okay. So we're all going to say this. I need to get the right freaking glasses. Get my reading glasses here. Okay.
You can do it with a
Sure.
recording.
Sure.
I think it's
Sure.
the same one.
Go.
100%
Sure.
Here we go.
I have an idea.
Sure.
It's up to you.
Sure.
But if each person just read a sentence.
That's cool too. You want to do that, Dennis?
Okay.
Sure. That sounds really great. Carlos, why don't you start us
And
off?
who was going to say Lord? You?
Carlos will. He's a spirit. He's a very connected fellow right over there.
Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace.
Where there is hatred, let me sow love.
Where there is injury, pardon.
Where there is love, faith.
Where there is despair, hope.
Where there is darkness, light.
And where there is sadness, joy.
O divine master,
Grant that I may not so much
Seek to be consoled as to console.
To be understood as to understand.
To be loved as to love.
For it is given that we receive.
it is in pardoning that we are pardoned.
and that it's in dying that we are born to eternal life.
The very last thing that I'd like to share tonight is something I touched on before, and that's that practicing the presence and the stillness of the presence are the things that you desire, and the stillness of the presence is the peace that you require. And the I am presence is very real. I've seen it 3 times, but again, what was unique or different about St. Francis, and we have all done this, all of us in the room here, we've all at one time or another been very present with ourselves and with God. He strove for that, to not have any distractions, so he lived under vows, but and people then wanted all that structure later. And he worked hard. They physically built, and they treated lepers, and they did a lot of work. And it's just that the biggest thing I wanted to share was, in words have always failed me in trying to describe what I feel from my memories, is that he practiced the presence of Christ. That was his total mission. And he did his very best to do that, humbly and with joy. He believed in joy. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Bob. Thank you for inspired to share that beautiful painting with us. And I have a couple songs that we can listen to and connect with, and whether we know him as St. Francis or Kuthumi, doesn't matter. I believe there's a teaching even in the Catholic tradition that when you are baptized, you get a new name. When you are confirmed, you get a new name. And when you ascend, God gives you a new name. And so Kuthumi has a mystical meaning to it. A mystery that, if you meditate on the words and the sound of the words, why his Holy Christ self chose that name, why God gave him that name, may come to you. And so I have a couple songs, and this one is about St. Francis's love for Jesus, or Kuthumi's love for Jesus, and it's in these lyrics.
Enter Jesus dear, enter Kuthumi dear, and in your arms you bear the crystal chalice of your heart. The torch is past, the torch is past, to us you now impart the am the flame. You are the flame. We are the flame. Our voices breathe. Our voices breathe. Come open up your hearts and let the holy angels sing. To the world we go, to the world we go. Earth awake and now, God's plan divine awaits. There is a flame, I am the flame. You are the flame, we are the flame. Enter Jesus' gate, enter through me deep, and in your arms you bear the crystal chalice of your hearts. The torch is passed, the torch is passed, to us you now impart the blessed flame of golden wisdom. There is a flame, I am the flame. You are the flame, we are the
In the name of Jesus Christ, we call to you, beloved Saint Francis of Assisi, beloved Kathumi. We call to all the saints in heaven on this your feast day, and we ask a special blessing for each one here, each one on the broadcast, and for the whole earth, as we choose to incorporate your Christ consciousness, your love for nature, into our own lifestyle, into our own consciousness and awareness, your own love for Jesus. And the cosmic Christ. We call to all the masters of heaven to come celebrate this feast day with us. And let us go deep into this song, which is connected to Kathumi, and divinely commune with his heart. And on these feast days, many miracles happen. Many prayers are answered. Many visions will be seen. And finally, it occurred to me to mention, since we received something, it's a tradition here to go before the pitcher and give thanks to Beloved. We can all take turns and go in front of the beautiful framed picture of St. Francis and just commune with him. And we'll play this song one more time as we individually go up and give thanks, because it felt like there was a divine presence in the room.
When I'm done then, sure. Liz, could you please sit right here, please? I was told to share an honoring with Liz months ago at this ceremony. O love of God, eternal love, enfold all in thy ray. Send compassion from above and raise them all today. In the fullness of thy power, shed thy glorious beams upon the earth and all thereon where life in darkness seems. Let the light of God blaze forth and cut men free from pain, and raise them up and clothe them, God, with thy mighty I am name. Dear God, Heavenly Father, Creator, Ascended Master Kuthumi, this lady, Liz, was our Claire in this whole project. And she truly is a Claire. She is uplifting. Every time she talks, she uplifts me. She's always been bright and a shiny star, and she's confronted me on a couple occasions with what wasn't working in me and made me look at myself and change and come back and say, I'm sorry. She's a bright light, and she, of all women I've known in San Diego and abroad, she is one of the very special women. And God bless her. Amen. Oh, Heavenly Father, Great Spirit, Creator, bless this house and my friend Dennis Fisher, Carlos, all present here, all the saints and ascended masters on this great feast day of St. Francis, that we could learn from St. Francis how in our own lives to be more compassionate, to turn on our compassion, get out of our heads, get off our smartphones, and turn our hearts on to one another, that we become better with one another, love our neighbor as Jesus wanted us to, as St. Francis saw the imperfections in the church and said, I need to live like Jesus. And with that thought, I bless and seal this ceremony with the light of 1,000 suns. May the I Am Presence and the threefold flame of love, wisdom, and power burn deep within our souls and within our hearts. And let the mighty cosmos, fiat, love of God, the I am that I am, the Yod, He, Vov, He, be in each of us and have that vibration of love carried out this holiday seasoning all through the next year as our earth gets raised up into the light of 1,000 suns and achieves that ascended master octave where we all shall someday dwell.